Well, hello, everyone. We're back again today. Going to do the finish up to part two of the legislative process in Tennessee with Tilman Goins. So, Tilman, I thank you for joining us today. Before we get into everything, I asked you to, if you're watching this on my Facebook Midnight Rider page, to like the page or follow it. And if you're watching it on YouTube or Rumble, you can follow me on either one. It's Charles Cook 52 on YouTube and Rumble. Like and subscribe and ring the bell. That way you get the notifications when I upload a video. So anyway, with that being said, we're back with Tilman. When we left off the other day, Tilman, we were talking about once we got a bill basically out of committee or it got put behind the budget or whatever. So now we've got the bill out of committee and it's heading to the House floor. What can happen with us there with a bill once it gets to the House floor? Can it be amended? Can it, they kill it? Whatever, anything can happen. Explain the process if you don't care.
Yeah, happy to. And thanks again for having me this morning. I really appreciate it. And quick recap. So yeah, it goes through the subcommittee, committee. If it has a cost, it goes to the finance committee. If it doesn't have a cost, then it doesn't go to the finance committee. But there is one step in between there in the House floor, which is the calendar and rules committee. And so the calendar and rules committee is really nothing more than, they don't really debate the merits of the bill. It's just getting it scheduled to be heard on the House floor, which is usually either the following House floor date or 2 or 3 dates out. But so we get to the House floor and it gets pulled up for that third and final reading. If your viewers recall watching part one, there's 2 readings that are procedural on the House floor before it ever even goes to the committee. So when you're called for the third and final reading, you go up in front of the entire House, which is called the well, right there in front of the speaker. And that's where you have an opportunity to explain your bill to the entire body. There's 99 members of the body. You need 50 votes. Even if only 80 showed up that day, it's not a majority of who's there. It's a majority of who's supposed to be there. So you need 50 votes to get something passed out of the House. And if your bill is successful, either at that point it is already passed the Senate or it needs to be passed by the Senate in identical language. And so if you've passed the House, your job is done until you wait for it to pass in the Senate. And once it passes in the Senate with identical language, then it's ready for the governor's signature and your bill has just become law. Usually these bills have an effective date set for either the middle of the year, July 1, or the following year, January 1. Sometimes they're effective immediately. It usually depends on, does the public need time to adjust to the change in the way they might do things that affects their life or not? I often prefer just to make it effective immediately because a lot of the bills I passed often restricted what government can do. And there was no sense in giving them time to wait to continue to carry out whatever activity they were doing that body thought should have been changed. So right. That's pretty much it. Once you get it done and it becomes law, it becomes law.
So my question is kind of a follow-up is if a bill makes it out of committee, it gets to the House floor, can it be amended on the House floor?
Oh yeah, sorry. Of course, yes, it can. So oftentimes, however, once something is worked out of the committee, we spoke last time about when you're sitting in committee presenting a bill, then it could either be somebody from one of the state departments that comes and speaks against it, or maybe local business owners or whatever that may come and speak about a bill being deemed the experts. When it gets to the House floor, it's pretty much understood by most of the members that a lot of debate has already happened through the committee system. That's why these bills have to go through that tumbler process. And so often, if there's somebody that wasn't on the committee that still has an issue with the bill or some questions about the bill, if they're allies or if they're the same party or something, usually they've come to that member beforehand. They don't want to try to put them in a bad spot on the House floor with all the cameras right there at the final stage of the bill. Usually an attempt to amend a bill on the House floor, unless it's minor. Maybe it could be a clerical error in the bill that somehow got missed throughout the entire committee system, which happens sometimes. Nobody's perfect. Then you'll see them change on the House floor. If it's something major, then usually it's an attempt to try to sink the bill. They're usually brought up by opposition party. So if the Republicans are in charge, and they are at this time, and there's a bill dealing with an issue that Democrats don't like, they're going to do whatever they can to try to bog down the debate, to try to bring about extra debate by just bringing amendment after amendment after amendment. One in particular that I recall standing in the well for a very long time, presenting on a bill, was firearms in public parks. And the Democrats, one in particular, brought a slew of amendments to say, and for nothing more other than because they wanted their voice time on the House floor, knowing that the amendments weren't going to pass. Everything from you couldn't carry a firearm on Easter to you couldn't carry a firearm unless you were a veteran, to whatever, just again, so they could just try to have their moment in the sun to try to debate those particular points.
And get their time to play for their constituents of how we fought this. We fought tooth and nail, and they wouldn't even allow an amendment on the issue or something like that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask this question, because we've seen some of the stuff that goes on the House floor with some of these bills and some of these amendments that are offered and stuff. So
right now, there are House rules that for an amendment to go on. Well, let me back up. So if the Senate has already passed it, remember they have to be like language. So if the Senate has already passed it, then if the House amends it and it's different language in the Senate has to retake it up and debate whether or not they want to accept that House version of the bill, or if they want to keep the version of the bill that they themselves passed. And so it can ping pong back and forth a few times to try to get it where the language is the same too. But yeah, that's another one of the reasons I think why a lot of people don't want those amendments on the House floors, because it delays passage.
Yeah,
just extra work for everybody.
Okay. Another step I know is I remember this. So if it passes the House and the Senate, passes on the floor, and the governor vetoes it, then they can go back, if I'm correct, and have a veto override vote, right?
Correct.
They have to have what, 2/3?
No. So that's one of the unique things about Tennessee and why governor vetoes are so rare in Tennessee, actually. I was, in my 3 terms, there were, that I recall, 2 different bills that were vetoed by the governor.
Okay.
One was because there was a lot of public pressure for him to veto it, and there was a lot of public pressure against the bill. And surprise, surprise, the public pressure, even some of it came from celebrities that had no idea what the bill actually did. It's one of those things that when we get to talking about lobbyists, I would love to bring this up. And I know that's going to be in a later video, but let me circle back to this bill. Oh, there's my Jen Psaki language again. Let me come back to talking about this particular bill, but it got vetoed, and the sponsor didn't need to want to bring it back up. The other bill that I recall getting vetoed was the Bible is the state book. And there was a situation where the sponsor did want to try to override the governor's veto. But all you need is a simple majority to override the governor's veto, which is why they're so rare, because if you're the governor, you have to think, I mean, you don't want the political defeat of having your veto overridden. And you have to think, well, if it passed the first time through the Senate and House, surely it's going to pass again the second time. Just because it just takes the same votes that passed it the first time. All they got to do is vote for the exact same thing they did the second time. And that was one of the things that I thought was disappointing about that Bible as the state book for Tennessee was because you had folks that thought it was a good idea the first time, and then they changed their minds and were pressured against it and didn't think it was a good deal the second time.
So you think they might have felt some heat from the governor's office?
I'm pretty sure they did. There was a lot of now there was a lot of publicity surrounding that bill too, and so you start to get. I represented Morristown. You're in Morristown. You don't really get a lot of conversation surrounding what goes on in Nashville every day like you do in Nashville. When we were in session and I was back in my room at night and I would turn on the local TV, even the local news, during session, the first half is what happened on Capitol Hill that day.
Right.
The Knoxville news media doesn't really cover it as much.
Yeah,
But
it's
that
very
bill,
selective there.
yeah, so that Bible bill though was one that really did, even on the outskirts, the edges of Tennessee, far east and far west, it really did permeate, right? And so people were talking about it all over. And so I'm pretty sure past the passage of it, and then when the governor vetoes it, it's a big deal. So the news was really talking about it. Their constituencies may have gotten more vocal after the fact as well. So yeah, I think there was some pressures, plus the governor, of course, he put his opinion out there, and then there was some local support, but then there was a lot of anti-support too. So,
right. So there is the government veto, and then there is the ability for the governor to just let it sit there and him not sign it, him or her not sign it, and it just become law without their signature.
correct.
Yeah. So I think that actually happened a couple times.
It happened. That happens a lot more often. He doesn't want to take a he doesn't want to take a public stand on it. And it's 10 days, right? He's got 10 days to sign it.
So once the bill passes the House and Senate and then goes to his desk, it's there for 10 days. And if the governor doesn't sign it, then it automatically becomes law without his signature.
Correct.
So, and well, that's good. It's a lot of things that even for somebody like me, of course, I don't get to Nashville a lot. I try to go at least once a year, but I've not been able to go the last couple of years. Is we don't always understand the process, and still may not, as far as everything it can go into things. So I think this information is good for people who are political nerds like any of us,
Right.
get in
Well,
and need to understand that if we're going to run a bill, if we have a bill, something that means something to us in Nashville, we need to understand how it plays out. And we've seen it play out this week. A bill in Nashville that gave ballot access to minority parties. So when I say minority parties, it can be the Green Party, Constitution Party, Libertarian Party, whatever. But it got the majority votes in the House floor, but it did not receive 50 votes, so therefore it died. And so we see that happen.
now, when it doesn't get a majority vote, it does get referred back to the Calendar and Rules Committee. That sponsor can then go and request it be rescheduled on the House floor. I think in a situation like ballot access, where there just wasn't enough people there to get to the 50, they can request, and they can actually have an opportunity to debate it again on the House floor to try to get to their 50 votes if they think they've got the votes. If they don't have the votes, then why put everybody through it unless it's one of those situations where they're just trying to get the members on record.
Right. Well, and you have, maybe it's one of the, and you know how this works as well. They have the votes, but somebody felt enough pressure that they just didn't show up for that vote.
I've seen it happen more often than you know. A lot of times those contentious bills, you will see a lot of legislative. So there are no breaks during a legislative session. And I've been on that House floor for 10, 12, 14 hours at a time before. Some bills are, some laws are very, very small corrections or things that maybe or even almost unanimous just because of what they are in nature. And there are times when folks have to take restroom breaks. There are times when folks have to do, different things. And but sometimes you see a gaggle of lawmakers all having to take the restroom at the same time. It's because they don't want to, perhaps they're, they don't want to vote yes or no. We even have an opportunity to blue light something, which is just, so there's a red light and a green light, whether you're a no or a yes. And then the blue light was just like, I'm here, but I'm not voting on this issue. And sometimes they don't even want to push any button at all, simply
Right.
because they don't want to be on record. They say, well, I wasn't there that day, or I was in the restroom. And yeah, they don't want to be on record of standing on a particular issue. I'm sure there are things that I've had to be in the restroom for personally or somewhere else, but I've never, if it was a big issue, then it was a big issue to my constituents. I was there. Whether I was a yes or a no, I was going to be there for it. That was where my people expected me to be. That's where the 64,000 folks that I represented in the state of Tennessee expected me to be, was there voting and paying attention to those issues.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, like I said, we've seen it happen and everything. And I just wanted to bring that out too, is it's how it operates. And, I'll say this, a lot of people, and myself included, I've taken a couple trips to Washington, DC, and it's good to go see and visit the Capitol and everything. I think everybody should go do that. But I also think a lot of people need to go to Nashville. They need to go and walk the halls, the office where the offices are. They need to go see the hallways where the committee rooms are. Go sit in the committee rooms and watch this stuff take place, and they'll get a better idea of just how much is there, and what's going on. And
I wish more people would have when I was there. Rarely did constituents come to Nashville to spend any amount of time. They did, but I mean, and I get it. It's a 3.5 hour drive, and I always told, if they did make that drive to Nashville from Morristown, I did always tell them, look, if you ever need to just meet with me and you want to do it back, because I lived in Morristown, I'm there on the weekends. I'm there on Friday. I'm happy to meet with you to save you the 3.5 hour trip. And that was as a courtesy.
right.
But while they were there, I also tried to show them around a little bit. This is the committee rooms. This is the thing. And I always tried to treat them, because it was their house. And the office that I occupied was their office. It wasn't mine. I was just the occupant of it at that time. And so I wish more people would have come, but I get it. I understand it. People work. They do these legislative sessions during the week. It's a 3.5 hour drive.
Yeah. And that's one of the things about our state is the way it's laid out. If you're in West Tennessee or East Tennessee, it's a long drive, and just to go down there for a vote on a bill, it's like you said, 3.5 hour drive from Morristown. If you live in Bristol, it's another hour 15 minutes on top of that. So the way that our state is laid out, that's tough. And so, but if you have time to do it, I would suggest to do it. So, all right. Well, I think we're running up pretty close to about 20 minutes here, or pretty close. So I think we'll go ahead and end this. I think it pretty much gets the point across for this one. So we'll finish this up, and I asked you again to like and subscribe wherever you're seeing this, and share it with people that that are like-minded like you. Maybe they'll get a better understanding of the process and how things work. All right, Tilman, I appreciate you. Always a good friend and everything. I appreciate you taking time. We're going to do some more videos and share them later. So everyone have a good day. Thank you, Tilman. We'll see you again.
Thanks.